Welcome to the Founders Focus podcast, an open conversation with TechCorp founder Gary Beach and those who care about the future of technology. For more than 25 years, TechCorp has worked to ensure K through 12th grade students in the United States have equal access to technology programs, skills, and resources that enhance early learning and prepare them for college or career. Founders Focus invites you along for the journey as we examine technology and how it impacts the way we work and live.
Hello and welcome to TechCorp's Founders Focus podcast series. My name is Gary Beach and I am Vice Chair and founder of TechCorp. We're excited to start a three-part series today focusing on corporate America's role in creating a more diverse technology workforce. In this series, we will speak with three technology executives. Jermaine Henson, Vice President for Software Development Services at Nationwide, Greg Tacchetti, Chief Information and Strategy Officer at State Auto Insurance, and Kim Snipes, Executive Vice President, CIO for Consumer and Digital at KeyBank. Why is diversity such an important issue? Research reports reveal companies with diverse workforces are 1, more productive, 2, more innovative, 3, they more easily attract and retain talent, and 4, they have more satisfied customers. But a recent report from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission says tech workforces are overwhelmingly white Asian males under the age of 40. Moreover, corporate cultures that are inhospitable to women cause more than 50% of female technology workers to leave the field within 5 years. More has to be done. And thankfully, more is being done. And today in part 1, we are going to talk with Jermaine Henson from Nationwide to share ideas on how to create a more diverse technology workforce. Jermaine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. It's a great pleasure to be here.
We appreciate your time. To get started off, to give our audience a sense of what you do in your role at Nationwide, why don't you just take a moment to explain what the job as Software Development Services Vice President at Nationwide does.
Yeah, Gary, thanks for the question. So in my current role, I'd use the words business solution area leader. I essentially lead the planning, the development, the requirements, the testing, the software engineering and development of solutions for our NF businesses. And that, this includes our operational data store, package solutions such as Salesforce.com, as well as, many of our digital front ends through NF.com. And that's really for our three businesses of retirement solutions, annuities, and life insurance.
That's a fascinating job. Jermaine, many of the folks that will be listening into this podcast are young people looking to get a career in technology. And I think now knowing what you're doing, they'd be interested in knowing, what is, everybody has a story on how they got into this industry. Yeah. What is your tech career story? When did you realize, for instance, you wanted to work in technology? And importantly, who were some of your primary influences?
Yeah, I would say, being involved in technology and being fascinated by technology really happened at an early age for me. I can remember as a young kid, being fascinated with simple things like what we call simple now, but the VCR. And I remember getting myself in some pretty big trouble by taking that VCR apart and, just to be able to look on the insides and understand what was happening, what was the process occurring. I also, at an early age, my parents bought me a Tandy 1000 personal computer. And I can remember, primarily I used it for games, but I could also remember just reflecting as a kid on, how the system worked overall, my ability to interact with the system, load different disks, play different games, have the visual interface. So I was always kind of fascinated by technology, but it would be years later in my career when I would realize that I actually wanted to work in technology. I was a freshman in college. I was working at a small boutique computer firm called GLC Systems. This was years ago. It was 1995, I believe. And this is when the immersion, if you will, of the personal PCs, custom built PCs actually was coming together. And, it was at that time where I was working at this small company, putting PCs together. We were doing local area networking, wide area networking. You'll recall at that time, dial-up internet was just becoming a really big thing. And so those were some of the things that, made me realize I could see how technology was really going to drive business as well as, our social interactions of the future with the introduction of the internet. So, as I think about some of the people who really influenced me, I had an uncle who was a software developer, for years. And I can remember, being, inquisitive about the things that he did in his job and how writing software and writing code, actually was needed to run and operate businesses. Mm-hmm. And so, my uncle was certainly a great influencer of mine. My older brother, who went to the Air Force, followed in my father's footsteps, went into the Air Force, also was a technologist, and that was his trade in the Air Force. And he's the one that kind of helped me get initially involved in that custom PC building work at GLC Systems.
That was an exciting time.
That was an exciting time.
We were so lucky to be part of it.
That's right.
And it's interesting, your answer, Jermaine, from one of our first podcast, the two folks we interviewed. They were also talking about what you essentially said, the importance of applied knowledge in terms of taking those machines apart. How does it work? So not just what, having the knowledge, but how do you apply? Jermaine, if you take a moment, what is Nationwide's relationship with TechCorp?
Well, I work at Nationwide. I've been a proud Nationwider for about 22 years, and I serve on the national board for TechCorp. Mm-hmm. And I'm very, appreciative and humble to be able to serve in that capacity. Nationwide has been involved with TechCorp in a variety of ways. One, they have sponsored some of the hackathons. I think they have a hackathon that's coming up that Nationwide will be sponsoring. And I know that earlier in my career, I actually served as, I think it was a mentor for TechCorp students that would come to Nationwide for a day and have the opportunity to shadow people. This was years ago. But, Nationwide has, a great tradition of being involved in many of the programs that are, active in driving diversity as well as inclusion, particularly in the technology domain here in the Columbus community.
It's the importance of mentoring, as you mentioned, is just so important, whether it's a worker or your uncle, like
That's
you
right.
said. And I would encourage folks listening that are interested in a tech career to follow Jermaine's advice and identify a mentor and work with him or her. Jermaine, this is one of the seminal questions we have here today. What is your take? Why is this wonderful industry we've been talking about, the tech industry, and we've both been in it for decades? Why, after decades of discussion, why is our industry still struggling to be more diverse? Why is that so? In your opinion?
From my opinion, Gary, it really starts with access in early education. I really am a firm believer to that. And that's one of the main reasons why I was so interested in serving in this capacity with TechCorp, because, I think the earlier we're able to help people bridge the gap from, understanding how technology works and how to understand, and not just going from understanding how technology works, but how technology can work for them, whether it be in small business, whether it be in big business, really helping people bridge the gap and creating a safe place, for younger students to get involved in applied knowledge of technology. I mean, it can be a daunting field. It has kind of a legacy and a history of being a field where, everyone is expected to be a genius mathematician. That can sometimes be the perception. The reality is that there are a lot of applicable uses of technology that that kids use on a day-to-day basis, now, and may not even realize it. So I think taking away some of that, stigma, if you will, from technology and getting applied experiences for future technologists early in their learning education life cycle. That to me is one of the reasons why I think we continue to see underrepresented demographics in the field. There's an opportunity and a need to ensure that we are getting those applied learning experiences to all schools at earlier grades across the country.
To interject, a fascinating. We all get these emails each day, and I found one this morning that kind of dovetails to your point, because then I want to get back and ask you about that early intervention. That there's 4 million technology workers in our country right now. Unemployment in the tech industry is 1.5%. So that means of those 4 million workers, there's only 60,000 of them are unemployed. Okay, put that over here. CompTIA, which is an industry organization on certification out in Chicago, they reported yesterday that there are 318,000 open IT jobs in our country. So if that doesn't suggest that we have to do collectively a much better job at getting more people interested in tech, nothing does. And rather than have this question at the end, I wanted to bring it up now because you mentioned early intervention. I just finished reading this book, Everything I Learned to Know, I Learned in Kindergarten. Have you thought about what grade level or what age level should young children in America be introduced to technology? And I'm not talking about writing code, but that could be part of it.
Yeah.
But what right now it seems like it's more middle school, high school. Is it certainly those are important. Is there an earlier intervention you say?
I think so. I certainly think so. I think one of the first things that we, have to acknowledge in this question that you ask is, one, we're dealing with digital natives. The generation now that are in primary and secondary school, they're interacting with, digital graphic user interfaces. They're touching screens and iPads and phones. They're downloading apps. They're interacting with technology in a very hands-on way. And so again, going back to my earlier comment, I think I think as early as the primary grades, first through third grade even, and helping kids understand how technology can be used to solve problems, because it's the mindset and the behavior, and then also as you build that mindset and behavior of how technology can solve problems, then you also, as they matriculate through the education process, I think we have to be clear about expanding this definition of IT. Gary, you and I know IT is so broad now. I mean, you have developers, software engineers, you have infrastructure engineers, you have people who are focused on writing automation, you have architects, you have information risk management professionals, data scientists. And so, starting at an early age of being comfortable with technology and using technology to solve problems, and then understanding the true scope of all the things that you can do in the field of technology as these kids kind of come up through the educational process, I think is absolutely important, because then it becomes second nature. And this is the last thing I'll say. We often say technology, and we sometimes differentiate between technology and, business roles. But what I see, it certainly is a pattern across the industry, is that more and more business people and more technologists are blurring the lines between their roles. Technologists have to have business acumen and understand business processes.
Right.
Business leaders have to have technical acumen and understand how new businesses can be accelerated through the exploitation of technology, solving problems through APIs, microservices, things of that nature. The scale and the scope and the speed in which business leaders can move now, given the current context of the cloud, requires that they really have a fundamental understanding of technology. So these roles are beginning to merge a bit.
I mean, how many times over the years have you and I heard people on stage say, I might have a CEO of an airline. I'm really a technology company that happens to
that's right.
do planes. And that could be said about all workers. They're all technology workers. They just happen to be, doing cloud applications.
Right.
But getting back to diversity, I want you to do one thing for me, then explain your letter grade. Speaking broadly, what grade would you ascribe to corporate America's efforts to be more diverse? And then the second part of that, why so?
This is, again, in my opinion, I think there has been great progress, but there is so much more progress to go. So I would say, if you asked me for a specific grade, I would say, I'd give it a C and say we're doing about average, but we have so much more potential in creating these diverse workforce. And it's not just for the sake of diversity, frankly. As you think about the products and the services and the business processes and the sales channels and the distribution models, they're all the common denominator in all of those things is the diverse population of people who are interacting with, purchasing from, working with the context of those goods and services and business processes. So it really is, I think, imperative for businesses to ensure that they are doing the things that are required to have a organization that looks like the communities in which they serve.
Good points. And what I wanted to just focus on for a moment or two, what, in terms of your role as a business leader within Nationwide, what is Nationwide Insurance doing to make its employee base more diverse?
There's a lot of things. A couple things that I would say is we're at Nationwide. We really strive to have a culture where every voice is heard and every voice matters and every voice contributes. And one of the other opportunities that I have, another capacity in which I serve at Nationwide is the chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council for Nationwide Technology. Mm-hmm. And so when you talk about things that Nationwide's doing, we're partnerships like TechCorp and the sponsorships that we provide for like the hackathon that's coming up, other local organizations like Per Scholus and Year Up, in which we are being very deliberate about recruiting a diverse talent pipeline. This strong commitment, I really believe this strong commitment is one of the reasons for Nationwide's success and why it continues to be, a Fortune 100 company. It is truly, I'll tell you, Gary, I have benefited both personally and professionally in my time at Nationwide. And I started as a young college student working my way through, college. And I'll tell you, there were great opportunities for me to learn, for me to develop, for me to mentor, for me to be mentored, and for me to be promoted to where I am in my career. Now, did that require a lot of grit and tenacity on my part? Sure. But it also required a company who was willing and able to invest in a diverse pipeline and diverse associates, giving them greater responsibility as well as this investment in their personal development.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're saying, Jermaine, culturally at Nationwide, diversity is an important corporate value that emanates from the corner office.
It actually starts top down, right? You're absolutely right. It's driven by the board of directors, our CEO, Kurt Walker, our senior executives. It is demonstrated by you use the word applied, learning, but there's also objective facts, right? And we have been recognized, Nationwide has been recognized as having one of the most diverse boards in the insurance and financial services industry. We've developed a strong recruiting and advocacy partnership with HBCUs and National Urban League. So, the list goes on of to your point, Gary, of it is a very important aspect of our culture, and it is demonstrated by our senior leaders on down to our frontline associates.
You talked, Greg, Jermaine, rather about the whole aspect of proactively recruiting candidates, whether they be diverse or not. But thinking about a diverse candidate, a candidate that you may have hired recently, what do you do, if anything? I mean, is it harder to integrate a diverse candidate into a workforce than not?
That's really a great question. So as I mentioned earlier, I lead the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council for Nationwide Technology. And, part of our promoting this environment of inclusion is we created a strategy that's based on 5 pillars: attracting the diverse talent, developing the diverse talent, retaining and then elevating that diverse talent, and educating all on the value of the education, or I'm sorry, of the value of diversity. So to the question you asked, I don't know that it's harder, but I do believe that organizations have to be, cognizant of, you said it earlier, of as someone assimilates into an organization and they're new, having programs where people can be mentored, where people can, have the conversations with people who may have had similar experiences as well. All of those things I think are important for helping not only the organization retain the talent, but helping the talent become, effective, if you will, as soon as possible within the context of the new organization.
And there's a tried and true saying, you plan your work, you plan. And listening to you, it just comes across so clearly to me, the importance of having a strategy for, right, let's say, business execs listening to this podcast, not just, we're gonna start a diverse program and what have you, but have a finely tuned, corporate strategy is important. I guess one that could be measured also, but so strategy.
That's right.
You also got me thinking about, this goes back several years. I was talking to sort of your counterpart at Salesforce, and we were talking about diversity for a column I was writing at that time for the Wall Street Journal. And what they do at Salesforce is every month they do an audit of every page they have on the web. And they're looking for people on the pages. And then they're just doing this page has an African-American, has an Asian, has a man, has a woman. They were shocked how undiverse their web pages were. And, Mark Benioff's pretty front and center guy. He's out there talking about diversity, and the website is not, and they changed it immediately. So that's just a thought, not for you, but for the listeners. When you get back, have someone look at their pages there. Let's see. Just flipping the pages here. What advice you've given such cogent advice throughout this conversation? But what advice to business executives would you prioritize? And we've mentioned the strategy, but what are the 3 things, if you can put it in that order? I hate being asked that when I'm on a podcast. Yeah. What are the 3 things, Gary? I don't know. But what's the advice? You're sitting down with a colleague at another company, and he or she asked you, how do I build a more diverse workforce? What would you say to them?
At Nationwide, we're very, I think, deliberate is the word that I would use around focusing on ways to encourage this allyship. And, there are 4 things that we try to really focus on. One is reach out. You don't have to wait for someone to come to you. Be proactive and intentional and sincere. Offer opportunities, make a conscious effort to give someone a chance to grow. So if you're saying, hey, as a a leader or a business executive that, may be listening to this call, give someone an opportunity, give them a chance to grow where they otherwise may not have that chance. Listen to that person, ask for and consider the prospective employees with diverse background and experiences. I think, the common denominator that we all have is that we are all diverse in some way.
Sure.
And so you have the opportunity to learn from different perspectives by just simply listening. And then, as you listen, learn, use these interactions and viewpoints for your personal development and personal reflection. And I've been in technology for 20 plus years, and I've had great experiences, but I have learned so much in this last year and a half by being the chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion board for Nationwide Technology, and then also serving Gary on the board for TechCorp. Just understanding, one, the different perspectives, the great opportunities, the importance of diversity as it relates to our business strategy, and how it really takes the entire culture of the organization to make it a reality.
No, it's good points. Jermaine, in my opening comment, I was talking about, and this has not changed in 40 years, that the male-female aspect of the IT workforce is anywhere from 75 to 80% men and 20 to 25% women. How can we get the gender balance more balanced, the gender composition more balanced? And do you think the pandemic has exacerbated the gender imbalance in the technology industry?
I'll start with the first question. I would go back to what we talked about, earlier as well, which is it starts at an early age. I mean, one of the programs that, I know that the hackathons and some of the things that TechCorp, your organization, does, Gary, our organization as a board member, is get the interest, get the involvement, get the hands-on applied knowledge of all underrepresented demographics in technology, which includes young girls who code and things of that nature, understanding that it is a field that is full of opportunity. Just reflect a little bit, Gary, on the numbers that you shared from the article that you read. We have to increase the pipeline overall of people coming into technology jobs, especially as technology becomes even more ubiquitous, in business and in our personal lives. And so, as it is right now. And so I think there's an opportunity and a need to create that pipeline of both females, people of different ethnic backgrounds, people with a variety of interest in the different types of technology roles that can be played out and fulfilled.
Oh, at the beginning of the podcast here today, Jermaine, I was mentioning that thankfully many people are stepping up, to confront this challenge, and you're doing a wonderful job. And Jermaine Henson and your role as Vice President of Software Development Services at Nationwide for TechCorp and the TechCorp Founders Founders Focus podcast series. I want to thank you for sharing your ideas and passion. And I know people who are listening to this podcast have walked away with applied knowledge, to go right to work and have to recruit. We have to recruit like 300,000 more people to not only just the skills gap, but the job shortage. So thank you very, very much, Jermaine. And for the TechCorp Founders Focus podcast series, I'm Gary Beach. Thank you very much for listening today.